Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. An hour from right now, the vice presidential debate begins in Salt Lake City, Utah. It is a legitimate news event, obviously, but we're going to be honest with you. Under normal circumstances, we wouldn't give it exactly breathless coverage. It's not that interesting. Nothing about the vice presidency is very interesting. Quick, who did Hillary Clinton run with 4 years ago? If you guessed some guy, you're squarely in the majority of most Americans, but don't feel bad about it. History barely records the names of winning VP candidates. It's fair to say that Abraham Lincoln was a pretty big deal. He ended slavery and won the Civil War. But how many people remember Lincoln's first vice president, Hannibal Hamlin of Paris Hill, Maine? Even in Paris Hill, Maine, there are some who've never heard of him. Nelson Rockefeller became vice president of the United States under Gerald Ford. What do you do all day? Someone once asked him. I go to funerals, Rockefeller said. I go to earthquakes. And that was a fair description. With the exception of Dick Cheney, every modern vice president has been utterly subordinate to the leader he has served. Most vice presidents are afterthoughts in this country, and that was especially true of Joe Biden. Barack Obama had such a low opinion of Joe Biden's intelligence and his abilities that he openly mocked him to his staff. Twice, Obama refused to endorse Joe Biden for president, presumably for the good of the country. What's interesting, and what's sad in a way, is that years later, Joe Biden is still in the same role. If he's elected president, Joe Biden would remain the junior partner in the White House. Biden will be 78 on Inauguration Day. It's hard to imagine he would finish a full term. But even if he does, Kamala Harris is more than 20 years younger. She's sharper, more aggressive, and far more in tune with the radical spirit of the modern Democratic Party. Kamala Harris knows what she wants. There's no question she would bulldoze her elderly, sentimental boss. So tonight we'll be airing the vice presidential debate, but what we'll actually be looking at is Kamala Harris's audition for the presidency. That's the office she's running for, no matter what they tell you. The debate itself will look weirder than most of them do. Harris and Mike Pence will be separated on stage by sheets of plexiglass, like the checkout counter in an inner-city liquor store. The Biden campaign demanded this. Actual scientists laughed at it. There's no measurable health benefit to doing it, but whatever. These are the same people who wear their masks when they ride their bicycles. They're not interested in what science says. They want to look serious. One thing they are really serious about, though, is ideology. They're not kidding. Kamala Harris has an agenda, a real one. Over this hour, we'll take a close look at what she would do as our functional president. Those details haven't been much discussed in the media, you may have noticed. Most of the coverage has centered on questions like, how do you say her name? By the way, Joe Biden still doesn't know. He regularly mispronounces it. Most of the rest of the coverage of Harris has consisted of warnings that we had better go easy on her. Kamala Harris is a woman. Any criticism will be regarded as sexist. To be clear, not as sexy, but as sexist, which is bad. Watch MSNBC issue the orders today.
Her team is also aware of the unfair gendered stereotypes that she might be up against. Secretary Hillary Clinton advising Senator Harris to be assertive, to be firm, but also to not do so too strongly as to be seen as aggressive. Unfair, to be sure, but that's the advice coming from the first female nominated to be a presidential candidate 4 years ago.
Oh, gender stereotypes. What MSNBC didn't bother to explain is how, in a world where we're required to pretend that gender categories aren't real, how in that world can gender stereotypes even exist? What exactly does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean anything, obviously. It's not a description. It's a threat. Leave Kamala Harris alone or we will hurt you. We'll smear you as a bigot if you attack her. Good luck getting a job after we're done. Harris herself has done this many times. She's a seasoned pro at hiding behind her own identity. Last fall, for example, polls showed her losing her home state in the Democratic primary. That's pretty embarrassing. But Harris had an explanation for it. Californians are racists. Americans in general are racist. That's why they don't love me.
What I describe and what I believe to be the elephant in the room about my campaign.
What is that?
Electability.
What do you mean?
Electability. You know, essentially, is America ready for a woman and a woman of color to be president of the United States?
America was ready for a black man to be president of the United States.
And this conversation happened for him. There is a lack of ability or a difficulty in imagining that someone who we have never seen can do a job that has been done, 45 times by someone who is not that person.
Yeah, a lot of racist Democratic primary voters out there. The weird thing is all of these secret racist Democrats voted for Barack Obama twice in a row. And that's pretty strange behavior for racists. Maybe it's Harris's Indian side they object to. Or maybe the whole explanation is a ludicrous crock of nonsense that doesn't even make sense. More likely, voters don't like Kamala Harris because she is a transparent fraud, from her phony inflected accent to her synthetic bio to her featherweight work history. Joe Biden's corn pop story is more real than anything about Kamala Harris, and it's not even true. Democratic pollsters know all this. They've seen the numbers, and that's why they've told Harris to start using the phrase, speaking the truth. Maybe voters will think she is.
One of the most important values that I think we must fight for is to speak truth. To speak truth.
We have to speak truth about it.
We speak truth, and we are loyal.
That we speak truth.
Let's speak truth. Let's speak another truth.
Let's speak truth. We must all speak truth. So let's speak some truth. And we need to speak that truth so we can deal with it. Let's speak another truth. Let's speak truth about our economy. And let's speak the biggest truth of all.
Let's speak truth. Yes, let's do that.